I'd like to say good afternoon, and I want to thank the fourth trimester organizers and sponsors for this awesome opportunity to share my experience and narrative this afternoon. My name is Jennifer Johnson. I'm going to introduce myself in Navajo and share a little bit about who I am and where I come from. And then I will proceed with sharing my birth experience with you. So, She'e Jennifer Johnson Yanishya, French Canadian national, Azatlana Bashichin, Polish Dashache Ado Tachi Dashinala, She'e Turanesh Danish Ekad Hosto Dishakan. What I shared with you is I am French Canadian. I'm born for the Mini Goats clan, Navajo. My maternal grandfather is Polish, and my paternal grandfather is Red Streak running into the Water clan. I'm originally from Northern Arizona on the Navajo Nation. I was born in Flagstaff and raised on the Navajo Nation, and I currently reside here in the Valley. I am the daughter of Dan and Diane Johnson, and my grandparents on my mother's side are Ray and Shirley Waldock, and then on my father's side, Nelson and Pauline Johnson. And so it's super important for me to honor and acknowledge my grandparents as well as my parents, because that's how I come to you this afternoon as a human being, and also acknowledge my clans and who I am as an Indigenous woman. So I just want to express myself and also acknowledge my body as I sit here with you this afternoon, because this is my home, my body, the energy that I am sharing with you this afternoon. And so we all have a birth story, and we all have an origin in which we emerged as a human being. And so I'm going to start August 3rd, 2020. Last year, I had a birthday and I wasn't feeling so well. So I went to the doctor and I was given the news that my companion and I of 14 plus years would be expecting a child. My daughter made a joke. She's like, who goes to the doctor to see if, to be screened for COVID and comes home pregnant? Well, this mama did. We were, I'm gonna fast forward, things were going well. We were in about the 7th month, 7th month of our pregnancy. And we had gone to the provider and we were just doing a normal checkup. And she proceeded to inform me that I was diagnosed with something called a placenta previa. And from what I was told at that moment was that it was serious and that it was potentially life-threatening. And I, being an Indigenous woman, was priding myself in having a natural birth and really using the customs and the ceremonial practices to not have a home birth, because my family was like, absolutely not, but to develop our birth plan, and that was abruptly interrupted because I could not have a natural birth. I was told that I had to have surgery, and that it was really scary to hear that. And my provider proceeded to tell me that there was a potential that I could die if I were to have complications with that diagnosis. And so anxiety skyrocketed. I started reaching out for help. I talked to a dear sister who became my doula, and we were going to birth at the Indian Health Center over there on Indian School, and was told at an appointment that the L&D unit was closed. And I was shocked because I had been told that I would have surgery, and I felt very displaced. I felt very scared. I started, looking at other, providers, and I was referred to the Siwapatli Collective, who I have many sisters who work in that space, and they really advocated for me and went to bat and got me connected with resources to assist in furthering our birth plan. So inside of that, I was diagnosed with the placenta previa shortly after gestational diabetes, shortly after I was anemic, shortly after I was diagnosed with melasma, where it kind of paints your face a different color. And my provider, they don't do bed rest, but she was like, you need to stop working. And we were in the 8th month of our pregnancy at that time. And I was terrified. In my community, we have ceremonies, we pray together, and that was not an option. However, my doula, she did come to the house and she did pray with us, and was acknowledging the water that my daughter was living in. And, you know, we had a scare. At the beginning of our 8th month, I was hospitalized with complications related to the placenta previa, and they were worried that my daughter was going to come early. And so I want to honor my body, because my daughter stayed inside my body for an additional month. I was discharged from the hospital, told to monitor the symptoms, and I prayed to her every day that I'd say, Mommy is your home. You know, I am the energy that I want you to grow in, and that I don't want you to grow in a machine as much as the medical support was there. I'm so proud of her that she stayed inside of my body just at the beginning of the 37th week. I went in, the medical appointments intensified. They were weekly, twice a week. We were told if there was any complications, we had to rush to the hospital. And I think the scariest part was, part of our birth plan was that my partner would be in the delivery room, the surgery, but if I went into emergency labor, that he would not be allowed in there. And that was the hardest thing to hear, because it was so uncertain. There was so much fear, and really I was not really prepared or told what a C-section looked like. And I was really scared, but we went in for a checkup, and my provider checked me, and baby was forming well. They were concerned with the gestational diabetes, but she was like, how about having a baby next week? And I was like, next week? Like, she's due, you know, at the end of March. And she was like, no, she's well, she's breathing and, you know, swallowing the water, because they practice breathing, and all of her development was on. And so we scheduled our birth for March 4th, 21. So 3/4/21. It's pretty easy to remember. My partner was allowed in the surgery. And I think for me, what I really want to convey at this part of my narrative and my experience is just that I didn't know what was going to happen. I had to address end of life stuff. If I were to hemorrhage and to die, what would be my wishes? And it was real. It wasn't a thought distortion. It was medically told to me, you need to prepare. Of course, they were going to try to do a blood transfusion if I lost too much blood. And so having a 19-year-old daughter and having not yet met Kailani yet, I had a reverse experience raising my daughter without her biological father. And it was heartbreaking to think that my daughters would grow up without a mother. And it was scary. I prayed. I set up an altar the day that I went to the hospital. Altars, we put offerings, and we used smudge, and we prayed before the sun came up, and we asked our ancestors, you know, my grandparents who traveled back to the spirit world, to be there with us, and our belief system, and we did our very best. So we welcomed Kailani with the understanding that there could be complications, but also that we were praying for transcendence of that fear, transformation, to welcome a life, and also to keep me here. And so when Kailani came out, it was a beautiful ceremony. If you don't know this, birth and pregnancy is one of the oldest ceremonies of human beings. It is the most sacred, because each and every one of us are here because of that ceremony. And when she came out into the delivery room, the NICU team circled her and said that they were concerned about her heartbeat. And we had this plan to do skin on skin and keep the bare necks on and keep, as much energy around her that she had in me. But they took her from the delivery room while I was on the operating table. And it was one of the most terrifying moments of my life. I'm so grateful to share that I did not need a blood transfusion. I respect that energy of people who donate blood. But they did, my partner Armando and Kailani went to NICU and they monitored her and they actually cleared her. I was in post-op and I looked over at my nurse and I was really tired. And I was like, can we call Kailani? And she was like, call Kailani. I was like, can we call NICU to see how Kailani's doing? She's like, I don't think Kailani can talk yet. I said, well, I know that. But within that moment, my partner came in with her and it was the most beautiful moment of my life to see that she was well. And I want to say thank you. And I also want to acknowledge the air that we're breathing, the water that we're drinking, the food that we're eating, this Mother Earth that we share together as a community, all my relatives from 4 different directions. I want to share that when we're done here, this is sweetgrass. This is the medicine we use, represents Mother Earth sprayed. It's just really pretty. It smells really good. I'm going to burn some after I end my expression here for each and every one of you. And I want to say congratulations to the new moms and dads.
I was supposed to give birth at a birthing center. The whole reason was because of the mask mandates during labor and delivery. And I don't use, I didn't do like an epidural. I don't do any of that. I use no medication for my delivery. So I wanted to just use breathing as my thing like I had done before. And so because I wasn't getting that at like a mainstream hospital, I said, okay, let me try to find a birthing center that will take me. So it just so happened though that he came premature for 1. So that would be a hospital delivery right off the bat. So I ended up at a hospital pretty far from home. With just the attending on call, and it is a teaching hospital. So I had a resident with me basically the whole day who missed the whole breech thing. And I had just weaned my other baby like 4 or 5 months prior. So I kind of expected to be primed and ready. I didn't really anticipate any issues. I had done this before, but just the trauma of the delivery that I had and the separation from my baby was huge. So I had a really hard time getting my milk to come in. Like I said before, I kind of had the mindset, like, we're going to comply and do everything we need to do to get out of here ASAP. So I should have known, but for some reason I just didn't realize like day 3 through 5 was crucial. And, I wasn't pumping every 2 to 3 hours. I would sit in the NICU all day long and nobody would really bring it up or anything. And, so I had like no milk. When I would pump, I would not have, much, if anything. So there were some times where I had nothing. So I think that goes back to just like the trauma of everything. And, so with him being premature and a NICU baby, right off the bat, they started him with donor milk. At least he was getting breast milk, but, I wasn't really, it kind of went unnoticed that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing to establish a milk supply. So I think I did see lactation like once in the hospital, but there's like one person for the entire hospital. So she's running around like a crazy person and doesn't have the time or resources to like sit down with me and go through my history and everything that had gone on with this delivery. So I don't know why it's not standard in the NICU to have comfortable chairs for nursing moms, but it like doesn't exist. And it's like not a concept that the hospital considers. I don't know. But definitely this time around, I was a lot more sore since I had a C-section than with my other kids. And, every time I came in, it was like, oh, let's try to find her a chair. And, they would have like broken down office chairs and like big clunky, like lounge chairs where it's not really comfortable to like sit up and nurse the baby, So I'm not sure why that is that way, but it would really make a huge difference, I think, for moms if NICUs would have comfortable furniture for moms to come in and sit and nurse.
Last year, I was working as a lead teacher with the unaccompanied minors. Getting pregnant was not the plan. I was actually getting ready to have a hysterectomy. And God just had other plans. And so it was right at the height of the pandemic. So I had taken a pregnancy test at home. So I knew I was pregnant. I just didn't know it was with twins. So I had to wait a couple of weeks to get an appointment just due to, protocol. They weren't letting, people come into the office. You had to schedule the appointment. And once I scheduled the appointment and went and I did the ultrasound and I just remember the tech letting me know, well, there's not just one, there's two. And I just lost it. I just couldn't believe it. And it was just rough. I have to be honest, I was not happy just because of the current situation of my job going remote, not knowing what, that was going to look like. And then bringing in two more beings to this, crazy world that we're living in right now. So for me and my boyfriend, we're just kind of like, okay, well, let's figure out what, let's just try to get through these next 9 months and, making sure that you get good prenatal care. I will say that my pregnancy was, health-wise, it was a good, healthy pregnancy. I didn't have any issues. I gained a good amount of weight. The fact that it was, I forget, they're die. So it was 2 placentas, I wasn't at a high risk. So that was good. But I will say my OB, it's Dr. Michael Hervey. He was really a lifesaver for me. He really uplifted me. He has experience doing twin deliveries vaginally. So he always kept me very much encouraged, doing check-ins with me. But still is the fact that I had a doula, but at the time when I went to the hospital, a lot of the situation changed. I couldn't bring anybody. It was just me and my partner. I couldn't bring my mom. It was just a very quiet, very quiet in my room in the hospital, not having any visitors. So that part of it was, I feel like I had already been in isolation like the full 9 months and almost like quarantine at home. And then to bring these girls into the world, it was just challenging. I'm used to having, support from my colleagues. A lot of them are doulas. I have some midwives. That was really like my support system during those 9 months of just because, again, like I just was not expecting the situation to turn like that, where I just wasn't going to be not having like that support system with me at the hospital. And then once we had the girls, just having to be more cautious of not having family come over. I didn't really get to enjoy the postpartum part of being at home with the girls, having like my mom help out. She did come for a few days, but my mom, she works in hospice care. So that was just another big risk, that I just really had to, it was just really hard. just having to put boundaries because people just wanted to come over, and it's like forgetting that we're in a pandemic. I just can't have people come, in and out.
How was your birthing experience?
It was interesting. I imagined it. I kept watching videos. I would not recommend going on YouTube and looking at videos because I did that the whole week that I thought I was in labor. But it was everyone's experience is different. And when I would go on there, I'm like, man, they've been in labor for like a whole week. So I thought I was going to be in labor for a week, and it turned out I was only laboring for 4 hours. And it went by very quickly. It came and went. But it was a really good experience. I had a lot of support. I had my midwife there, and due to COVID, thankfully I was able to have my boyfriend there, my mom's friends, a really good support team to be there when she was born to help me through everything. And it was very helpful, and I wouldn't have chosen any other way.
And this was a home birth, right?
Home birth.
We have a baby girl's birthday, and I want to have a home birth. The pandemic comes, and that kind of like seals the deal that I'm going to have a home birth, because when it was time to kind of decide and make sure I could get midwife care, they were going back and forth whether they were allowing birthing partners into the hospital, and we all already had the 2 toddlers at home. We couldn't ask people to travel. My husband's mother passed away in March, so our local childcare option, not to mention dealing with the grief of like our family changing and everything, but the local childcare options were not available. So I thought, we have a home birth, and no one has to go anywhere. Like, we just have the baby right here. Circumstances put that upon us, and our doula is now a certified midwife. So she was our midwife and did our prenatal care, and I switched over from the hospital care to straight up home, and it was such a wonderful experience. And it's like my birthing stories get like more and more natural as they go on, and by the end, this guy came. My husband caught him because I had been in, I think it's called pre-labor for a week, but I didn't know it. He came, like, he's like kind of like a textbook, like your back starts hurting and like for a couple days, and then like the bowel movements are all weird for a couple days, but I had never, like the other 2 didn't come that way, so I wasn't aware. I had been eating super healthy, and so on the day that he came, I wanted a pastrami, and I got my favorite pastrami, and so when I was having stomach pains later, I was like, oh, that's a pastrami, like, because I hadn't had one in like a month. I was like, definitely pastrami, it's gotta be the pastrami. So I go to bed, and thinking anything of it, I'm like writhing around in bed like, oh gosh, this pastrami, and my husband had fallen asleep like downstairs on the couch, and I go to the bathroom, and I was like Googling like how to know if you're in labor and stuff like that. And then at one point, they call it the ring of fire when the baby's crowning, and I stood up, I was in the bathroom, and I started to feel that, and I called out to my husband. I don't even know the sound I made, because it's like in a dream when you're like, help. But like, no one can like hear you, but he came running up the stairs so fast, and I was like, oh, I don't know what's happening. He's like, you're having the baby. And then, because I knew that he was there, and then he knew that my husband was there, and he just came out, and my husband caught him, and I tried to pull him to my chest, forgetting that he was attached to me, so that was slightly uncomfortable. But other than that, just waddled to the bathtub, and Lakeisha was, our midwife was on her way after that.
Lakeisha Muhammad?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we went from a super medicated, heavily institutionally involved birth, where my husband, who is a tall man, didn't fit on the little sleeper couch, and like had no role. No one talked to him, and like, thank God Lakeisha was there, because who knows how they would have made me feel about my progress in labor, to one where I labored by myself without even knowledge that I was laboring, so it wasn't like that bad. And we were able to go to bed in our bed that night, and it was the kids slept in the other room, and and Lakeisha's intention from the beginning was to make sure I had that autonomy in my birthing experience. So I would love to say that it's You know, a Black birth worker will do that for you, but it's more layered than that. You know, it's not just because she's Black, but it's definitely her Blackness that led her to that kind of level of care.